Well, hey everyone, thanks for joining this episode of the Union Podcast. I am Scott King, your usual host, and I'm joined by usual co-hosts Chris and John. Hey guys.
Hey,
So we're going to talk about AI and then where you're actually going to gather that from. So we say that half of the AI you need, Chris, is available. You can go
yep,
subscribe to it. You can download it. You can use use a service to help you either generate content or like the LLMs and what have you. The other half is unique to you, right? It doesn't work for anyone else. It only needs to work for your business. And you can't really borrow that from a competitor. You can't download that off the internet and have it automatically work. What exactly do we mean? So if we say half is available and you can use it and the other half is unique to you, give us some ground rules on what that means.
right. So everybody's now reading books on AI. They know there's models, machine learning. We've talked about that in the past, but the trick is everybody runs their business a little bit different. That's why you're not your competitor. And different parts of your business may need to say they need to solve the same problem, but they need to do it differently. So, like, yes, you want to read your customer service emails and categorize them as the type of action that should be taken. That's a categorizer. We need to see your customer service emails to understand the words they're using, the terms they're using, and then we'll build a categorizer that understands how to do that. You can't just take that and say, well, let's use that for accounts payable or accounts receivable because you're still categorizing, yes, but the data, your business process, what you're keying off the words is very different. So we want to tailor it to the business needs. You're going to want 30 categorizers in your company. That's a type of machine learning or AI. The difference is you want one that knows how to work with, say, answering your emails for accounts payable. And then it's a different concept of receivable. Money's going in the different direction for customer service, for sales inquiries, like for support inquiries. So those things you need to build specific to your company so it uses your terms in that. And an analogy that I actually got from John, pretty clever. He said that the reason we have 3D printers is because sometimes you just need one part for one thing. So you don't need to have 400 of these built. I need this one part. It's a specific size. It fits in a specific location. I just need one of them to complete my project. So you're just putting in one piece of a larger chain of information or say mechanical pieces. That's why people love 3D printing. They're like, this one thing failed or this thing didn't fit. Let me just create one specific. The term bespoke comes from that to me. So I think people need to realize that, yes, there's a lot of things that are out there, but it doesn't understand your business. It doesn't understand how you want to answer things, your terms. We have a customer and they literally had 20 acronyms. And I was like, well, yeah, I would have never guessed what those acronyms are. You buy AI on the internet, it's not going to know those. It was trained on the internet. It wasn't trained on your company's acronyms. I mean, like yield at one company was renewals. Like we said yield. We all knew it were renewals. You're not going to find an ML model that knows how to do that when it comes to dealing with sales questions.
It's kind of
So
like turnover in the UK is revenue, right? And over here
yes,
it's something else. All
yeah.
right, interesting. So John, maybe you can enlighten us when John was or when Chris was talking about unique to you and the different categorizers. I mean, does it go all the way down to the different tech you're using too?
It does. So the thing that Chris even mentioned, and I'll highlight the word a little bit more, is he talked about how he was using a 3D printer example in a specific project, and that's really where you need to think about where the unique to you AI ends up getting created is a specific use case or a particular project that you're doing, because a handful of great generative models can be leveraged for lots of different things, but they're never going to be able to handle the intricacies of a specific use case in your language with your sensibilities, with your sensitivities, et cetera. And the other dimension is even at this moment in time, 9 months from now, you will say things differently, you'll treat things differently, your point of view will be different about certain things, and that will need to be reflected in the AI that you are continuously training. So you don't actually build and run, you continuously build and continuously refine. And that keeps the AI as close to our level of understanding of the world as possible. Because if we let it get 6 or 9 months old, it actually could be catastrophically old. I mean, there have been moments in history where we could point to that make that really obvious, like a COVID or a recession or a major product announcement or something like that. Those are clear, right? You'd have a absolutely decayed model, if you will, just days after that sort of thing. So you want, and I know this sounds like a tall order, which is why we worked really hard in Krista to make this possible for you. You need your near real-time understanding of how your business makes decisions and functions, and you need that to become continuously fed into a model that's created and curated for you. But the good news is that's exactly what we worked on so hard to do.
All right. So you said near real time. Like how near is near real time? Is it
Yeah.
months, weeks, days, minutes, nanoseconds?
Yeah. Have you noticed sometimes Chris actually sounds like a customer really, really well?
Yeah.
And because he makes us have to say the answer that we always have to say, it depends. So it depends in this, it depends here is, without getting, way into odd math stuff, is if it could only be one or two, if it can only be like on or off, and you're asking Krista to decide, is it on or off? Then just a handful of examples are going to start to be sufficient to know the distance between, is it supposed to be on or off? But if there could be 1,000 different answers for that question, then the number of times we'd need to expose Krista to what that answer was of the 1,000 in order to get confidence high that Krista's capable of replicating that decision-making. Obviously, that now you're in the months, right? But you'd be in the hours, and it's really not about calendar time. It's about observation of examples of that event happening, which AI people are like, I'm grinding the chalkboard on them right now. They just want me to say labeled data. That is the mechanism, right? We need that question plus the answer a certain number of times to get AI to take over that particular decision. But it's worth noting that the whole thing that I mentioned about over time and as near real time as possible is that there's a whole set of decisions that you guys make as an organization that there will be that will, at this moment, I can imagine, never be enough data to actually train a model on, because it really would end up more like a crystal ball than it would be trained on actual data and observing the behavior in order to do it. So, for example, the classic case for us is we'll, get a data extraction, which is some history and some inaccuracy and some ambiguity because people aren't necessarily consistent, which means we start at about 50% effective, accurate. But then over a period of usually weeks, we're up into that 80 plus or minus range, even 90% in many cases. But then we never reach that 100% level because of the constant change, right? When a new product is introduced or a new program is introduced or you change the rules about a particular, whatever it is, it affects the ability for that model to be correct, which is why we always say Krista's not instead of people. It's actually just learning from people. And if there weren't people, there'd be nothing to learn from. So we're not an anti-people type thing. We're a very pro-people type thing.
Yeah, you have to learn from the people, right? Because I mean, so I want to get into a little bit of if then, right? So we talked about the half of the AI you need, right? You can buy it, and then we have plenty of podcasts that talk about your AI, that AI, it must do something. We talk about orchestration. LLMs are only 5% of the solution. There's lots of that available, and we'll point everybody to that. But the other half is, okay, I can buy that. I need an expertise actually to assemble that inside my business. The other half is what we're talking about, the unique to you. So Chris, if I decide that I do need these categorizers, maybe walk me through what happens if I do have either one or more data scientists on my payroll, or if I have none, right? It seems like a daunting task.
So if you have them on staff, give them the hardest gnarly project. And because you may look at your projects and say, hey, these 45 projects are going to give me 30% of value, but Krista can do these quickly and automatically. Well, go let her do those, right? And then that one that you want to spend a year researching, like this is going to be give me a 40% lift. It's a little bit more. Let them focus on that. It's fine. The catch is, in either case, you need to say, I'm making a decision with AI or I'm predicting something, but it has to be part of it. End-to-end automation, like you said, it has to do something. But realize, John said models decay. So you don't run into the thing where they say, okay, we spent 12 months, we built this model. Now we need to spend 12 months to build an application to host this model, to do something with it. Well, then your model's going to decay in the middle. So you want Krista to host that model for you the same way she's hosting the model she built for you automatically. One platform to do both of them is the best approach. So it's not one or the other, do both. Now, we do deal with a lot of mid-market companies, and we found out it's going to be over $100 plus, plus, plus. We're never going to have one of those. It's like, well, that's fine. That doesn't mean you don't get to enjoy AI. That means that you want Krista to be your data scientist. You want her to actually be presented with the problem. It's like, are you trying to predict a number? Are you trying to like give a yes, no answer or categorize something of alert levels or the type of email? You basically just very practically ask the business person, what do you do today? Well, we get the email, someone reads it, and we determine this as a category. That's labeling. You can do that. Now, sometimes they say, well, that was great, but we acquired a business 6 months ago. So all of our data is garbage. That's not a problem. You can still use Krista. It's just that she starts out as being a novice. And you can actually say, fine, you don't have labeled data. You don't want me to read anything. Don't care. She's going to be a little bit annoying and she's going to ask you, what is this? And she's like, oh, this is returning of a product. Oh, this is a returning of a service. We don't accept that as a return. This is a question about a product. And you explain to her over. And after a week, and she's done 100 of these, she'll go build a model automatically. And then you can ask her, say, okay, when you think you might have an answer, tell me and I'll approve it or deny it. And if you don't know, that's fine. I'll give you the answer. But then at 2 to 3 weeks, as she's gathered more samples, and as long as it's not ultra complex, it's like things you actually do every day, she'll get smarter over time. So you can actually have her build the model from nothing by just interacting with your own people. And then there's a tipping point. Your people will say, okay, she's getting it right all of these times. And this number that we cautiously put at 60, let's make that a 70, let's make that a 50, whatever it is, and let her take over. It's like some of these, I don't care. I've trusted she's doing it. And that's part of the humans wanting to trust it, plus the model getting stronger. And then you just have exception management. So it doesn't matter if it's, you want to use a data scientist, great, split up and let's both do something different. If you don't have a data scientist, if you have labeled data, great. If you don't, that doesn't mean you don't start. That means you just take a different approach, and that's built into Krista. But the trick is, why are you doing this? What's your biggest problem? What's your outcome you're trying to solve? Don't do machine learning because it's cool. Do it to solve a business problem.
Yeah, the people who think that machine learning is cool haven't done it because it's really a messy data problem. The amount of time you actually spend doing the really cool thought work of shaping a model and choosing algorithms and comparing them and all of that is few and far between. What you're mostly doing is set and awk and exports and transforms of data and pipelines on a bunch of equipment you don't have enough of, and doing something and waiting and then realize you got a script wrong somewhere and botched job and doing it all over again. So there's a lot of sexy sounding AI, but they're really in practice is just a whole bunch of data munching on tasks. So you'd really do want software to do as much of that as you can. But I'll be the first one to tell you, a as proud as we are at Krista building her own models for you on your data, making an understanding of your decision making, and then being capable of making those decisions for you and with you, the way that Chris just described. As much as we're proud of that, people build themselves bespoke those really high consequence models, not the decision you make 1,000 times a day. And of course, you want those to be right, and Krista gets them mostly right. But the models that are driving the foundation of your business, I mean, I myself am going to have the best data science guys that we've got focused on that if I were in that project. The question that remains is, as soon as you have a data science team, you'll have a data science backlog, and it'll be years long. So you'll get that years long down to, I don't know, still long by getting Krista to do most of those. So this is a symbiotic relationship is the point. And then to just reiterate what Chris said just a little bit differently, but he said it just great, is keep model building, but think about, how do I deliver it? How do I integrate it with systems? How do I feed it the data it needs to make its predictions? How do I rope in people when it needs it? How do I get the incremental training back out of the systems that are needed in order for that model to remain healthy? All of those are Krista use cases for even your own data science team's models. So we got a lot we can offer here. And I think that in terms of the constraints of getting ourselves as a practice to be able to embrace tech change faster and faster, especially AI change, I think this is one of the two fundamental constraints, and I think we've nailed it. So I'd love to see how people do it. In fact, calls buried with calls of that very thing, and I'm certainly excited to be on those. But then plenty of folks who are still uncomfortable at taking that first step. I just wish I could show them themselves 3 months from now. But they're like, okay, where else are we doing this? Let's get going. Well, I'm in a hurry now. That transformation is exciting to see people go through, because where they start as pessimistic, what they don't realize is we're just talking about math here, right? Because there's a lot of talk about faith or trust. And really, if you just think about AI as just another thing that either gives you sufficient data to make a decision or insufficient data so you cannot make a decision. That's really all we've modeled in the way that Krista builds its own AI. There is a confidence and transparency with every non-deterministic thing that Krista does. Even if the AI practice doesn't support such a notion, we have invented one to give you the ammunition you need to know you either have enough confidence in this prediction to be able to act on it, allow it to be taken or confirm it briefly, whatever, or not to have to, or for it to tell you, I myself am looking forward to figuring out what that answer really is, because I'm not sure. Whichever it is, you get to make AI decisions the same way you make every other business decision, which is never with complete data, never with an infinite amount of time, always with some defeated version of those things, right? And you make a decision anyway. So we've brought AI into that same real world.
Yeah, John, you were talking about so the decisions, and then you talked about finding out an answer 3 months from now. And then before that, I'm stringing all these together. And before that, you talked about the backlog. So I'm curious what the cycle time is today. Like if I want to start this, like obviously the first cycle is longer, and they'll become shorter and shorter and shorter. So what's the cycle time look like today? What does it look like in 12 months? And then what does it look like in 24 months?
Yeah. So there's a constant that is, I describe it as a physics problem still. We integrating systems that do not want to play nice with Krista is the long pole in every project. So whether you do a simple one now and it's fast and a slow one later, or you flip them and you wanted to use Krista in some, integrated with some system or data that is not friendly to communicate, then that really is, that determines so much of it, Scott, that I can really just simplify it down to that. If you have Krista orchestrating people who are already available via some kind of communications channel, check, that's usually the case. If you have systems to collaborate with that are clean API driven, those are two different things, right? That's two hurdles. Right? It's got to be pretty good API and pretty good API. Then we get through that one quickly. So those projects are 4 to 6 weeks. Our guys are often on the kickoff meeting or within a couple of days of it, showing a project, half or more done, where we're fighting with software that doesn't want to talk to software, and it only wants to be used via a user interface. And we have a little bit more work to do, a little bit to a lot, more work to do. So it really is there where we will have to figure out. But the good news is, time continues to get those systems either to modernize or to go away, or to build that integration, as ugly as it is, that one last time. And then via Krista, you never have to integrate it again at that wiring level, because once Krista's talking to it, then anything that uses Krista is able to access those capabilities without an additional development effort. So you can see it as an asset, tackle it one last time, and now you've isolated the rest of the company from it. It's a whole different use case and value prop related to Krista, but it's certainly worth mentioning here that we don't want our folks having to know and be so directly wired into those backend systems. It creates challenges to change it. It creates challenges to make it modernized. It creates challenges to swap it out for something that's better, faster, cheaper, whatever. So once Krista's that middle person, then it's easy to do all of those things. Well, easy. It's easier.
Easier.
It's easier. Then at least you take one whole vector of challenges away, which is the change management for people side of it. Because now, instead of people showing up on Monday and saying, wait, what's this? I don't understand this. How do I do my job if I don't even understand? You take that all away, right? Which is helpful. But we can solve some great, as of now, almost untenable type challenges. All that SaaS software that was supposed to be so easy to get out of, how easy is it to get out of? And why? The answer, it's hard. Every one of them is hard. And why? Because your people know it. They're your integration strategy, and they're the ones using it. So if you take it away and put something else in its place, how are they supposed to figure out how to integrate it all? How are they supposed to get all of that done? And where's you basically just strip the tribal knowledge, and now even that's not accurate. So now how do you do things? So anyway, that's the big, of course, access to data is the other one, making change hard. But back to this whole premise, AI trained on your data in a near real time as possible is pretty much the only way you're going to get half of those models built. And those are going to be the ones that are making your 10-step process 6 steps, or your 10-step process 2 steps with regard to people. Let the machine do most of that work. Let the machine, and by the way, why is it 2 and not 0? Well, because of course there are plenty of times where the AI doesn't know. The interesting challenges are exactly what people are designed for. We do better jobs at those things that are challenging and interesting to us. We do a poorer job at those things that are not challenging and not interesting to us. It's just absolute fact. We are not as good at easy stuff as we are at harder stuff, given within our skill range, right? And because of that, a machine really ought to be doing it. And it just really helps us all do a better job and be happier. Because, when we walk into many of our use cases, we walk into teams of people where turnover is almost 100% a year. Those folks are not actually all that scared for their jobs. They're about to leave them.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But and Krista hasn't caused a single person to be let go of an organization. They get put in more interesting roles. Some of them end up Krista authors, and which is a great irony, right? They end up in different parts of the organization because their knowledge of the business is an asset. Their ability to carry on the businesses, carry on the understanding that bringing in someone new would need, that's an asset. So they get to show their value in other ways than this one.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole thing is you want to automate as many processes as possible so you can, like we always say, just move the work to machines or at least to software because then you can refine it, right? And you're learning because it's only going to get faster and faster, and nobody wants to do that repetitive work, right? I mean, you almost defined ADHD, right? You watch somebody with attention deficit, and they're doing the same thing over and over. They can't pay attention, but you show them an interesting movie, they can't get away, right? So, same type of deal. So, Chris, if somebody wants to get started, they're like, okay, these guys told me enough where I think I know what they're talking about. I do want to learn more. I want to try this. What, how do you pick what categorizer you need, what process you want to try this on? Because, if John says that, data and integration is the long pole, then, I guess you want the shortest long pole.
Yeah. Well, what a lot of people do is they'll say, we do this one thing once a year. Okay, you're not going to get to build a business case on that. But there's some things that people do every day. So, like the email categorization, people tell us we have 3 to 10 people, and all they do is this task over and over and over every day. Well, trust me, if they're categorizing emails every day, they're not happy employees. Because of the volume, they're doing 100 or 500 of these a day. That's a perfect place to put AI to solve that problem. It's very solvable, and the return on investment is high because you do it over and over again. So part of it is like just being practical. It's like AI can do many things. If you come up with a list of 10 and you have a call with us, we'll walk through. It's like these things are very easy to do. We know how to categorize. We know how to answer questions. We know how to do these things. So let's look at the realistics. What's your bigger end-to-end process? What's your goal? And then how often, the velocity that you do it, that's where we're going to narrow it down. And I'm not going to say we're not going to do all of them, but we're going to put them in that priority order, right?
All right. John, any closing thoughts before we shut down?
Yeah, you can look at this as what Chris just said was essentially look at the outcomes that are highly repetitive, and those are your top targets. Now you go through 2 phases. The first is you want to get the machine to do all of that work as much as possible, and then you want to find those points of friction where people are currently doing the job that you could have AI do that 80% of the time, and then you want to introduce that AI model. This is why it's built all the way back to that analogy to 3D printing. Now that you've actually tried to build the device, you recognize I'm missing a piece that does this. Otherwise, I got to get a person in here all the time, and I'm still not going to run this thing at machine speed, and I haven't actually transformed this thing. There you go. There's your bespoke build on just that, because that way the whole thing becomes we use that phrase all the time, or at least I do, and I really like what it connotes. But just to make sure we get it, most of your business processes don't actually take weeks. They take minutes. They sit in queue in the form of an email, typically, waiting for someone to pick it up and do some little thing in order to move it along. And the number of people and the number of times it has those pauses is really the calendar time that it takes for you to do these things. And that's lost or slower revenue, or increased cost. It's all kinds of things, right? It's even penalties and challenges with regulations and all that. When the machine can get that thing end to end, it completes in minutes. And that's the goal, of course, guided by people.
Yeah, love it. Yeah, it's sitting in emails queues until you become impatient, and then it's a text, and then it's a phone call, and then what have you. But appreciate it, guys. If anybody has any questions, obviously you can contact us at Krista.ai. We're here to answer any questions and help you with building your own ML, and hopefully you guys learned something. So until next time.